Meghan Markle has called her royal wedding a fairy tale, a love story for the ages. So why has Tom Bower, one of Britain's most respected investigative writers, traced her steps all the way back to 2013, years before she ever met Harry, and found a pattern that looks nothing like a woman falling in love? Bower's first book on Meghan became a Sunday Times #1 bestseller, and she never took him to court over any of it. Not a single claim. Now he is back with a follow-up, and the people closest to the royal inner circle say this one is going to hit even harder. Because what Bower found is not a woman who fell into royalty by chance. It is a woman who was building a launch pad. Meghan Markle did not fall into the royal family by chance. She went after it. The trail goes all the way back to 2013, right around the time her first marriage to film producer Trevor Engelson was falling apart. She had a decent career on the TV series Suits, but decent was never going to be enough, not for her. People around her at the time saw a woman who was always looking around the room, always working out the next move, always hungry for something bigger than what she had. And then, through a shared contact, she landed the one thing money cannot buy: a blind date with Prince Harry at a private members club in London. Now, here is the part that makes you sit up straight. In every interview Meghan ever gave about that first meeting, she played it cool. She barely knew who Harry was. She had to Google him. She was almost not interested. That story has never held up. In the days before that date, Meghan went into full research mode. She studied Harry, what he cared about, his charity work in Africa, his love of the outdoors, the deep pain he still carried from losing his mother as a child. She built a profile, and she walked into that club already knowing exactly which version of herself to show him. On the date itself, she was warm, open, and perfectly tuned in to everything Harry needed to hear. She told him she dreamed of living in South Africa. She said she wanted a quiet life away from cameras, working on the causes he cared about. She even looked at houses in Cape Town. Harry was completely won over. He told friends after that one meeting that she was the one. One date, either the most romantic thing you have ever heard or the most carefully planned. And the evidence points firmly to the second one. Because Meghan had no plans to move to Africa, California was always the goal. Hollywood was always the real target. She just had to play the quiet, camera-shy version of herself long enough to lock it down. And here is the part that really gets under your skin. This was not some wild guess built on nothing. People who were in Meghan's world during those years watched her work her way through richer and more powerful circles in London, building ties with anyone who moved in high-end spaces. This was not a woman waiting for the universe to drop a prince in her lap. This was a woman with a plan and a timeline. And the moment Harry walked into that room, she already had the playbook written. And somehow, it gets worse from here. To understand how all of this played out, you need to understand who Harry was before Meghan showed up. Because the real picture is not the charming, easygoing prince the palace wanted the world to see. Behind closed doors, Harry was struggling in ways that made even his closest friends uneasy. Mood swings, deep waves of sadness, a level of emotional ups and downs that made relationships very hard. Harry could not hold on to a relationship with an English woman. They all walked away, not because he was hard to love, but because the weight of his grief and his wild swings was just too much for anyone to carry over time. Into that empty space walked someone who had spent years learning exactly what a broken man needs to hear. Now, pay close attention to this next part, because it explains everything that comes after. The turning point, the single moment where quiet worry inside Harry's circle turned into real alarm, happened during a shooting weekend at Sandringham in 2017. Harry's closest friends had gathered, the people who had known him his whole life, the ones who had been there through everything. And during that weekend, Meghan went after the group over comments and jokes she found hurtful, touching on topics like feminism and social issues. Nobody is saying you cannot stand up for what you believe in, but here is the part that has never gotten enough attention. Not a single person from that Sandringham weekend got an invite to the dinner after Harry and Meghan's royal wedding. Not one. His whole inner circle, gone. And in their places, famous people she had known for about 5 minutes. People who could barely pick Harry out of a crowd before the engagement was announced. That was not a scheduling mix-up. That was a message. And it was not a one-time thing. Around the same time, Harry and Meghan went to the wedding of one of his oldest and most loyal friends, Tommy Inskip, in Jamaica. Meghan complained about the food and the service, making the people around her deeply uneasy. She came across as looking down on everyone, and the mood shifted in the way only truly awkward moments can. The same Tommy Inskip, one of Harry's lifelong friends, ended up cut from the royal wedding dinner as well. Think about what that means. The people Harry had trusted and leaned on for decades were being pushed out of his life, one by one, while a hand-picked list of Hollywood contacts filled their seats at the biggest event of his life. And the real tragedy is that those friendships were the last real tie he had to the person he used to be. Without them, he had no one left who could look him in the eye and tell him the truth. No one who remembered who he was before all of this started. And that may have been the whole point. If you are watching this, and it is hitting home, go ahead and subscribe, because tomorrow we are going even deeper into this story, and you are not going to want to miss what comes next. While all of this was going on in Harry's social life, something else was breaking apart that the palace simply could not hold together. Meghan's own family was being pushed aside piece by piece. Her brother and sister were not invited to the wedding at all. Her father, Thomas Markle, was kept at arm's length, and that distance was no accident. Meghan had said, months before the big day, that she did not want her father walking her down the aisle. Months before the health scare. Months before the staged paparazzi photos that Thomas Markle set up with a photographer. The tension was built slowly and on purpose, so that when her father finally tripped up in public, all the blame would land on him. King Charles himself stepped in and privately asked Meghan to fly to the United States and fix things before the whole situation blew up in public. She said no. She pointed to security and privacy. The senior royals were left stunned, and this is the part with the sharpest edge to it. People inside the royal world who had watched all of this play out had already come to a private conclusion before the vows were even spoken. This marriage was not going to last in Britain. That is not tabloid talk. That is the view of people who had watched decades of royal drama unfold and knew exactly what they were looking at. Meanwhile, Meghan was already working a completely different angle. Inside Kensington Palace, staff found things harder and harder to deal with. People felt buried by a level of demands that went far beyond what years of royal service had trained them for. Some just quit. Senior aides started avoiding one-on-one contact because every talk risked turning into a long, draining list of fixes and new demands. And then there was the moment with Princess Catherine, who had come with real goodwill to help with bridesmaid dress fittings and was shut down flat. Meghan wanted things done her way, on her clock. End of story. For people who had served the monarchy with quiet pride for years, this was unknown ground. And the tension did not stay behind closed doors. It reached the very top. By this point, the palace was no longer dealing with a tricky new member of the family. They were dealing with someone who flat out did not accept that the way things had always been done applied to her. And that matters because there is a big gap between a newcomer getting used to a strange world and someone who showed up planning to reshape that world around herself. This choice seemed small at the time. It was not. Because while all of that mess was building behind palace walls, Meghan was doing something big on the outside. She was rewriting the story in real time. During the engagement and the lead up to the wedding, Harry and Meghan leaned hard into comparisons between Meghan and Princess Diana. The images, the press stories, the carefully staged public appearances. To people inside the royal family, this felt not just tone-deaf, but deeply wrong. Harry, who was just 12 years old when his mother passed, did not fully understand who Diana really was, and made a big mistake pushing that comparison so hard. Diana had spent years earning the love of the British public through tireless, genuine, hands-on charity work. She visited hospitals. She held the hands of patients when the world was too scared to be in the same room. She built something real over decades. And here was Meghan, barely through the palace doors, being placed as Diana's spiritual heir. The comparison was not just off the mark. It was a carefully kept story because linking yourself to Diana creates instant, no questions asked public sympathy. And in today's media world, sympathy is money. Okay, but here's the claim that made even longtime royal watchers stop and stare. Meghan wanted what Catherine had: the status, the fame, the spot, not as a way of speaking. She wanted to one-up William and Catherine at every turn, timing her own news and public moments to overshadow whatever the future king and queen were doing, always putting herself forward as the one who should have had that role. And here is the painful truth at the center of all of it. Harry was never going to be king. He was never first in line. So if the crown was the real goal, Meghan had picked the wrong prince. But rather than accept that, she shifted gears. Look at the royal wedding guest list with fresh eyes. Hollywood producers, studio bosses, A-list stars, Netflix power players. At the time, people thought it was sweet that she was mixing her world with his. Those were not guests at a party. They were the first members of a business network. She was already building the setup that would one day become the Netflix deals, the podcast, the lifestyle brand, and yes, the jam. The jam that was sold as lovingly handmade in her garden, but was put together in a factory in the American Midwest and poured into pretty jars. Every layer of the brand, pulled back, shows the same pattern. A shiny surface on top of something that does not quite match what was promised. And the fans who once backed everything Meghan touched have started asking the one question no personal brand can survive. Is any of this actually real? So where does all of this land? Harry gave up everything. His military honors, his country, his family, his friendships, the only world he had ever known. He walked away from a system that had shaped every moment of his life since the day he was born, and he did it for a woman who had been running a quiet, step-by-step plan from the very start. Netflix, the crown jewel of their post-royal money machine, has confirmed what was predicted years ago. The deal is winding down, the podcast is done. The content deals that were supposed to prove Meghan as a global creative force have mostly dried up, and the public, slowly but clearly, has started to see through it. The bottom line on where this story ends is as blunt as everything else in the investigation. Meghan's loyalty has always followed one pattern. What is useful to her right now? She left Trevor Engelson when that marriage stopped helping her goals. She cut ties with her father when he became a problem in public. She cut off Harry's friends when they stood for a version of him she could not control. And if someone richer were to come along, a tech billionaire, someone with deeper pockets and bigger global reach, there is a very real chance that Harry ends up in the same spot as everyone else who stopped being useful. Just like Trevor. Just like her father. Just like every friend Harry ever had who got too close to telling the truth. There is a crash coming. The only question is how fast it is moving and who is still in the car when it hits. And here is the thought that makes this bigger than just Harry and Meghan. This is a story about what happens when an old, unmovable system runs head-on into the most modern, most cutthroat form of personal ambition the celebrity age has ever seen. The monarchy has survived wars, kings stepping down, and scandals that would have ended weaker setups, but it has never faced quite this mix. A world-famous royal title being used as a business brand from a mansion in Montecito turned against the very family it came from. The damage is real, ongoing, and not done yet. And the hardest question is not what Meghan does next. It is what Harry does when he finally, quietly, sees what he actually walked away from. And whether by that point, there is anything left to go back to. Drop your thoughts in the comments right now. Do you think Harry already knows the truth? Or is he still the last one in the room to see what everyone else saw years ago? Subscribe, because we are going even deeper into this story tomorrow. You are not going to want to miss it.